Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com. Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Pacific. Ray Flowers breaks it all down for you from a fantasy sports perspective. Hey there, everyone. Ray Flowers at FantasyGuru.com. I just noticed the tricky system here was trying to mute my microphone. How dare you, tricky system? We cannot be silenced. We have many good things, interesting things, funny things, informative things. We just have many things to say, and we will not be silenced here on Fantasy Sports Daily. I am Ray Flowers of FantasyGuru.com, as you heard there on the intro. Monday through Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Pacific Time. We are here rocking and rolling for you, talking baseball every single day, talking football Wednesday, Thursdays, and Fridays. Let's just jump into it real quickly here at the start of the show. We'll be visiting with Russell Clay to talk football. Remember, we talk football every Wednesday with Armando Marsal, every Thursday with Tyler Beaker, every Friday with Russell Clay. So we'll be talking with Russell here in about a half an hour. And you can see there on the screen if you're watching us live on YouTube at youtube.com/@ElitePlusNetwork or at facebook.com/FantasyGuruHQ. And if you're in either of those spots, you can leave comments, questions, thoughts, and we discuss those at the end of each broadcast. On the screen there, you can see what we're talking about. Russell Clay is going to talk football. He's going to talk Daniel Jones, Russell Wilson, Justin Herbert, Zamir White, Andrei Iosivas. Iosivas? I always get that name wrong. The receiver for the Bengals. We'll see how he pronounces it. Tony Pollard, Tajae Spears, the backfield with the Titans, Bucky Irving, Braelon, Allen, and the idea of handcuffing. We'll talk about that with Russell. Before we do that, we'll talk some baseball. Trea Turner, Brandon Nimmo, Eugenio Suarez, Cal Raleigh, J.P. Crawford, Tyler Stephenson, Masataka, Yoshida, Brandon Marsh, Michael Busch, Raliegh, Greene, Randy Arozarena, Yandy, Diaz, and Max Fried. We got a lot to talk about. We also have a little thing called Drafters.com we have a deal with right now. And if you have the opportunity, go over to Drafters.com. If you've been there before, you can get a sign-up match of 10% if you use the promo code Elite10, which is pretty nice. You re-up Elite10, you get a 10% match. If you've never used Drafters.com and use the promo code Elite, you get a 100% match. Ray, what is Drafters.com? It's a baller place to play some best ball fantasy football in 2024. As you can see there on the screen as well, there are literally millions of dollars in prizes available at Drafters.com. They got a really nice product available. In our draft guide at FantasyGuru.com that we'll talk about in a second for football, we've got an entire group of best ball information, a package, if you will, inside the package, spearheaded by Tyler Beaker, and talking about ways to win in best ball contests, including Drafters itself. Again, that promo code is ELITE for a 100% match of your deposit if you're a new member. If you're an existing member at Drafters.com, Elite10 gets you a 10% resubscribe fee. Pretty cool. Check that out. Now over at FantasyGuru.com is that draft guide. We talk about it every day here on the show. If you're new to the show, this is new to you. If you've heard it before, I'll be quick. The fact is the draft guide over at FantasyGuru.com is a full season product. It goes all year long. It's not just the preseason product. It goes all the way through the end of the regular season. The rankings are updated every single week. You get access to Discord to ask those questions every week. You get all the articles breaking down what you just saw, what to expect, waiver wires, changing, position battles that are changed, injury issues, and who's the next man up, all that all throughout the regular season. In the preseason, you get access to that best ball draft guide. You get access to all of our rankings when it's PPR, non-PPR, dynasty, rookie, IDP, best ball. All of that is part of the package. Go to FantasyGuru.com. Click the subscribe tab in the top right corner. And if you do that, you'll be ready to go. And you can find access there on that subscribe tab to the seasonal package that we're talking about. The DFS football package is available now. The DFS wagering package is available now. And you can even buy all of them. If you just want to do football balls to the wall, we got you covered there over at FantasyGuru.com. All right, let's dive in. There'll be more sales, but let's dive into what we wanted to talk about, some news and notes here as we're going. Trea Turner is absolutely on fire. And we took advantage of last night. We had the hit run RBI prop over at FantasyGuru.com. I put that out there. He needed 2.5, so it was a big number. I usually go 1.5 on the bets. We did 2.5 on this one. And in the first inning, he hit a home run. So he hit the prop in the first inning. Ended up going 2 for 4 last night. Trea Turner had that setback with his hamstring. And as a result, he's only played 54 games. So his overall numbers aren't huge. But he's played 54 games. He scored 46 runs. He's hitting 348. He's got a 922 OPS. A full season of work of what he's doing right now is about 25-35 with 140 runs and a 350 batting average. Yeah, pretty damn good. The last 20 games, 7 home runs, 20 RBIs, 19 runs scored. The last 12 games, hitting 400, 17 RBIs, 11 runs scored in those 12 games with 6 dongs. In the last week, 4 home runs, 11 RBIs in 6 games, while hitting 417. He is absolutely destroying the baseball. Now that they're fully healthy with Schwarber and Harper back off the injury list, the offense is even more dynamic. And, Trea Turner, I was looking back at this because Trea Turner's on my Tout Wars team. And again, it's a 15-team mixed league. As I mentioned earlier this week, I've been saying 12-team all along. It's a 15-team mixed league. He was my second-round draft pick in that league. My first was Shohei Ohtani. My second was Trea Turner. And looking back, I think he was like 19th overall. I get it because he was coming off a little bit of a down season last year. He hit 264. And he's certainly not going to hit 358. But we talk about this all the time. And, if you don't believe the sample size argument, and I know a lot of people, whether you believe it or not, you don't want to believe it, right? You want to think you can time the market. You want to think you can kind of get ahead of the system and everything like that. He hit 266 last year, not who he is. He's hitting 348 this year, not who he is. You know what he's hit since the start of last season? It's 288. What did he hit in 2022? 298. With his career batting average, 299. These things even out. And in the case of batting average, we talk about this too. Batting average of balls in play is just one example. You need like 800 plate appearances for that number to stabilize. 800. Guys don't get 800 plate appearances in a season, right? Last year, his batting average of balls in play was 310. His career mark is 342. Since the start of last season, his batting average of balls in play is 335. So I think Trea Turner is a prime example of a player that, he's 31 years old, just turned 31. So he started the season at 30. There was no reason to think he had terrible skills slippage. He started really horribly last season. The end of the season last year, he was amazing. The end of the season last year, he was as good as he is right now. So really, you could say his last 80 games, he has been one of the handful, like top 3 hitters in baseball. He's been bananas good. Bananas good. And we're getting a leveling off. It's too good now. It wasn't good enough last year. The truth is in the middle where he is. He's got a reasonable shot, even with all the time he's missed. He's got a very reasonable shot to go 2020 again. And, he's going to score 100 runs. And he's at 54 games right now. I mean, he just, shout out to a guy who's absolutely killing it. And for those people that did take him at a little bit of a second round, not really a discount, but a little bit of a discount. As long as he stays healthy, we're going to be really happy with that decision. The next guy up is Brandon Nimmo. Now, Brandon Nimmo, there's been a lot made about the All-Star game and all of that. Okay. Brandon Nimmo is just good. And the fact is that Brandon Nimmo doesn't stand out appreciably in the fantasy game in a 5x5 setup. Why? He's a 268 career hitter. He's batting 252 right now. He's stolen 8 bases, which is one off his career high. So he might steal 15 bags. That would be really nice. I prefer him not to run and just stay healthy. Let's not push things because he does have some physical issues that pop up from time to time. Though he's played 150 games the last 2 years. The fact is that Nimmo is, 16 home runs, 62 RBIs, 59 runs scored. These are good numbers. Are they outstanding? No, but they're really good numbers. And, we are looking at a player who's got a chance to at least replicate, if not blow past, the majority of his numbers for last season. 24 runs last year were career high. He's already got 16. He scored 89 runs last year. He's already got 59. 68 RBIs, already has 62. So he's very likely to set career bests in all those numbers if he can stay healthy. As I noted, he's got a legitimate chance to steal double-digit bases. Is a 30-10 season with 100 runs and 100 RBIs coming down the pipe here? It sure might be. And for those of you in on-base percentage leagues, as I am, he's on my Tout Wars team. He's got a 365 on-base percentage. Last year was 363. The year before that was 367. His career mark is 379. He's just really good. And it hasn't been totally even this year. He's been much hotter of late. So if Brandon Nimmo was on your waiver wire, or you made a trade for him because you're a Mets fan, or you just thought, hey, this guy's going to come around. The last 25 games over the previous month here, he's hitting .333 with 9 home runs and 3 steals. That's terrific. Okay. In 25 games, he's got 30 RBIs and 27 runs scored. He has been stupendous the last month. I just wanted to give a tip of the cap to Brandon Nimmo. Now, this next guy has been one of my guys for an awful long time. And every year I would kind of say, look, this guy's going to go 30-80, and he's not going to cost you anything. Yeah, he's going to hit 230, but, okay. We can wait at third base and go with this guy. This year, if you had done that, and I wasn't in on that this year, luckily, if you'd done that with Eugenio Suarez, it hasn't been good. He has been really disappointing. He hasn't been close to that, 230, 30-80 guy. There was even a point in time where it looked like he was going to start losing playing time. I got a bunny rabbit in my backyard. Let's see if I can snap a photo of that as we're interactive here on the podcast at SiriusXM Fantasy Sports. See how I just default to SiriusXM? Yeah, this is not SiriusXM, but I am taking a picture of a bunny rabbit right now if you're wondering why I'm stammering. This is Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com. I do have a menagerie in the backyard, as you're probably aware if you follow this show for any length of time. I did get a picture of my bunny. Let me get one more picture of the bunny. Look at him. He's going to town down there. I feed the squirrels in the backyard. We have scrub jays. We have blue jays. We have squirrels. We have bunny rabbits. Peter Cottontail's in the backyard right now. That's a pretty good size one. He's looking at me. Hey, buddy. We also have seen bobcats in the backyard. We see deer in the backyard. That's what happens when you live on the top of a mountain, I guess. And it's so funny because I'm Silicon Valley, right in the middle, the heart of a town. It's just we have an open space that's like a mile from where we live, and they walk around the neighborhood. It's kind of cool. Anyway, back to Eugenio Suarez. He hit a home run last night off Max Fried. That's 3 home runs in 5 games. And he's 11 for his last 33 with 6 walks. The 333 thing, obviously, we know. The 6 walks is nice to see because that's obviously saying to us, or trying to say to us at least, that we're getting to control the strike zone from Eugenio Suarez. And he is somebody that obviously for the month of July could hit 8 or 9 home runs, could drive in 25 runs. Like, this is still doable in his game. Is he somebody that I'd be running the waiver wire with, even with this strong start to the month? No, he's not. But again, if you're a third base hole, if you got a corner infield hole, we'll talk about Cody Bellinger going to the injury list. Maybe he's been your corner infield guy. Maybe Eugenio Suarez is not the worst guy to turn to. There is nothing to get excited about. It's, in my opinion, just a nice stretch, but nothing to sneeze at either, because we're all looking for a little bit of an edge. Though, of course, what's probably going to happen is the All-Star break will occur, and then he'll lose the stroke, right? That's probably what will happen. A guy who hasn't lost a stroke, doesn't seem like he's going to lose a stroke, is Cal Raleigh. Home run from both the sides of the plate last night. He went 3 for 5. He hit both those home runs were almost 114 miles an hour. He crushed them both. Second 2-home run game in 3 days. And he's up to 19 home runs now. And he's got a legitimate chance yet again to lead catchers in home runs and RBIs. It's really interesting because he's hitting 215 with a 299 on base percentage. He's really not a good overall hitter, and we all know that. So saying that with Cal Raleigh is not a put down. We all know he's not a really good overall hitter, but he can murder the baseball. We do know that. And his exit velocity is up to almost 93 miles an hour on the season, easily a career best. His 16% barrel rate is a career best, and it's a really good number. His 54% hard hit rate, career best, and a really good number. So there's a lot of support for what we're seeing. And in fact, his expected slugging and expected batting average are actually higher than his raw numbers. Does have that 32% strikeout rate. So, maybe it's 225 the rest of the way. But his game is obviously about power. And whereas with Suarez, I'm like, in the case of Cal Raleigh, we're in. And Cal Raleigh with 19 home runs and 59 RBIs has a legit chance to better the 30-75 numbers he posted last season. And given how bad the offense has been for the Mariners overall, the fact he has 59 RBIs in 89 games is pretty damn good. Let's just call it pretty damn good. JP Crawford, his teammate, had 3 RBIs last night, a home run, 3 runs scored. And Crawford, it's tough to judge a player when they're hurt all year. And Crawford's been beat up all season long. He's hitting 212 with a 665 OPS, which compared to last year's 266 average and 818 OPS is atrocious. Unfortunately, the offense we've seen from Crawford to date is kind of who he was before last season. So there is that thought in the back of your head, like how much of what occurred last year was just a career year? Because remember, he was batting leadoff for this team. He got his on-base percentage up to 380 last year. It was a really good season. So let's go to this year and look at the tail of the tape, if you will. He's on pace to have his worst walk-to-strikeout ratio in 3 years. Though 0.54 is still a solid number. He's maintained the walk rate from the last 2 years, though it's down about 3% from last year, which is not unexpected. A 15% walk rate is just huge. So he's getting on base at about the same pace. The strikeout rate is a 5-year worse. It's 22%. Again, it's just below the league average, so it's not a bad mark. He's got a 308 on base percentage, which is about league average, roughly. It's a little low, but the problem is he's batting 212. Like if he's hitting 250 like he did the last 2 years, that on base percentage would be 340 and everything would be fine. But he's hitting 212. He's not driving the baseball. His isolated power mark has regressed. The big issue here with him is his batting average of balls in play is down to 250, which is 40 points below his career mark. His exit velocity is the same as last year. His barrel rate's above last year. His hard hit rate's above last year. His launch angle is down a couple of percentage points, but I don't mind that. It's right on his career mark of 12%. There's a very reasonable expectation that he's going to hit 245, 50 the rest of the way. And if he does that, the on-base percentage and then goes up to 340, 350, then the run scored column starts to click up. Just something to keep in mind with him. A nice game last night. Let's hope it's a little bit of a springboard to making him a usable piece again in mixed league, because that's something he has not been to date. Tyler Stephenson going back to the catcher spot. He went 2 for 5 with 5 RBIs and 2 home runs last night. And we spent a lot of time. I write about it. We talk about it here on the show a lot. Second catchers and all that. We haven't done too much talk with Tyler Stephenson, who probably qualifies at first base too. And, he's on a 160-game pace to hit 250 with 20 home runs and 70 RBIs. But yeah, it's not bad. As a second catcher, certainly not bad. You look at his performance the last week, that is now 4 home runs and 10 RBIs in 6 games. So, and you look back the last 2 weeks, he's played 9 games, hitting 294 with an 1,100 OPS. So he's in a nice little groove now. He was in a nice little groove a month ago, something like that. The overall offense from him, if he has 250 with a 772 OPS, that's a good effort from him. He's on it right now. He still has second catching option, and just someone we should point out that is in a nice little groove right now. If you're looking for a pick-me-up at the catcher spot, you got guys with injuries, you want to try to ride the wave, in a 1-catcher league, in a 2-catcher league, happy to roll with him as my second guy. Masataka Yoshida went 3 for 4 with the home run and some RBI action yesterday. And, he was somebody last year that everyone was really excited about. Started out really well in the first half. At the end of the season, he had 15 home runs, hit 288. It was a good year. He came into this year, the team, made some signings. Willie Abreu advanced. Tyler O'Neill was brought in. Masataka's defense isn't great. So he started, playing a little bit, sitting a little bit, had an injury, and it's easy to forget about him. And the last 2 weeks, he's reminding people that, I can still be an effective offensive player. The last 2 weeks, he's played 12 games. He's got 11 RBIs, and he's hitting 333 with a 900 OPS. A nice, and I don't say this in a derogatory way, a nice little player. That's, he's only played 1 game in the outfield thus far. So it's looking like the Red Sox have said no bueno to the defense. And so Yoshida's going to be a DH only player next year. If that's the case, we're in trouble. Because a 280 hitter with 15 home runs, you're drafting that maybe, right? If he's only UT, maybe. But right now he qualifies at outfield. Right now he's in a little bit of a nice groove. And the Red Sox are killing it. They are taking advantage of opponents right now. And Yoshida is in a nice little groove. Next man up is Brandon Marsh. Brandon Marsh had a couple of hits, a couple of runs, a couple of RBIs, and he hit a home run. Brandon Marsh is, another one of these players who fits into the I'm fine zone and I'm not really exciting zone. And then you look up and his 150-game pace for 20 home runs and 20 steals. And while we say that by a lot of guys, right? Randy Arozarena, talking about guys, Brandon Marsh hitting 272. 2020, 70-70. So 270 average, 20 home runs, 20 steals, 70 RBIs, 70 runs. That's a pretty good season. And that's the pace that Brandon Marsh is on. And, I was just talking about the Phillies offense. When this offense is going, when Castellanos is going, and Bohm is going, and Brandon Marsh hitting 6th, deadly lineup for the Phillies. Deadly lineup. Brandon Marsh has done a very nice job this season. The last 2 weeks hitting 294 with 1,000 OPS. Stolen 3 bases in 10 games. That's nice to see. He's picking that pace up a little bit here of late. But yeah, he's just been good. And he was drafted to be good, and he's delivered on that. And we can appreciate that. Michael Busch had a couple hits, couple RBIs, 3 runs scored. And Busch has been a very interesting player because he came into the season with a ton of hype because we heard early on he was going to play every day. He probably qualifies at multiple positions in your setup. He's played first base 79 times, third base once, second base 3 times. So heading into next year, he's only going to be first base eligible. And as a first base eligible player, if he continues doing what he's doing and hits 280 and 20-80 with 90 runs, okay. He's a corner infield play. He's just decent. But there are really good signs here. Remember, this is his first full-time opportunity at the big league level. He only had 27 games played before this year. He has had periods of time where he's been great, as in right now. He's really in a nice groove at the moment. There have been periods of time where he's been ice cold. But I like to see the fact that when he was hot to start, got cold, he's getting hot again, right? So this is him making the adjustments to what's being thrown at him. And I got to say, it's only 45 plate appearances, and he's not going to face a lot of lefties. But he's handled himself really well in that scenario, and that was not something that was expected. He's hitting 341 with a 960 OPS. He's actually got a better slash line against lefties than he does against righties. Really, really good. So we were in on Busch at times. We've been off Busch at times. Now we're kind of back in. He's just done a really good job of ingraining himself in the daily lineup with the Cubs. And nothing he's done, even with the goodness, right? And he's been great for a first-year player. Nothing he's done is outstanding. Like, the 31% strikeout rate, that's the real issue for me because we say this all the time when we have these discussions. 31% strikeout rate, it's almost impossible to hit 280. Like, you can do it, but it's really, really difficult. He's much more likely to hit 250 if he's going to have a 30% strikeout rate. And it was 33% last year. It's 31% this year. So if he's hitting 250 with 25 home runs and 80 RBIs, he's basically what Eugenio Suarez used to be. If he can cut the strikeouts down, and maybe he's hitting 275, but just want to give him a pat on the back because, again, I've been impressed by the fact that he's made adjustments. It looked like, oh, here we go, right? But he's made the adjustments the last couple of weeks, and that's good to see. Raliegh Greene had 3 hits and 3 RBIs. I think I just wanted to talk about Raliegh Greene. To me, he is somebody that I hope all of you drafted. I have him in multiple leagues. We were very bullish on him the last 2 years. Both years cut to less than 100 games played because of injury. He still has it. So this is his 3rd season in the bigs. 93 games played, 99 games played. He's at 93 right now. He already has a career best home run total, career best run scored total, career best RBI total. So, he's doing all those good things. He's up to 17 home runs, 48 RBIs, 54 runs scored. He's got a chance to go 30, 80, 90, which is really good. The batting average of 266, we all like that to be a little bit better. I'm totally comfortable calling him a 265, 75 hitter, though. So I think the batting average, unlike Busch, who we're concerned with, I think the batting average for Raliegh Greene is this, if not better. He's done a good job. He's cut down his strikeout rate each of the last 2 years. Nothing substantial, percentage here, percentage there, but he's cut it down a little bit. It's really good to see his walk rate go up this year. 8% the first 2 years, 12% this year. So he's, again, controlling things better. And I read an interesting article about him talking about the swing changes he made. He made some changes with his swing, trying to get more loft, and we've seen that. His launch angle has gone from 3% to 7% to 11%. That's significant. 11% is a really good zone for a guy with this game. We'd like to see it maybe 14, but it's really, maybe he makes another 3% change next year, right? So he talked about making swing changes, but he hasn't really altered his approach, or at least that's what he said, which is interesting because the walk rate has gone up. So this is, again, all these pieces coming together signify that this Raliegh Greene is Raliegh Greene, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, this guy is a legitimate future all-star who's got a very, very nice bat. Randy Arozarena had a home run and 2 RBIs. I had someone ask me about dropping him in the Discord today, so I just wanted to hit on him yet again. The overall numbers still stink. All right, there's no getting around that, as we've said over and over again. The last month, he's batting .279 with an .882 OPS, 4 home runs, and 5 steals. This is not a guy we want to be dropping, folks. You got to get beyond the overall numbers. The overall numbers are not good. The last month, he's been Randy Arozarena. The last month, he's on a 20-30 pace. The last month, he's on a 20-30 pace while hitting .280. this is Randy Arozarena. He's been that guy the last month. The last 2 weeks, hitting 289 with an 871 OPS. The last week, 286 with an 872 OPS. He's been the exact same hitter for the last month. Week to week, same guy. And this is a very good offensive player. Don't release Randy Arozarena. On the pitching side of things, one guy before we talk a couple injuries and then visit with Russell Clay. Max Fried, 6 innings of 1-run ball last night. Got a loss because, that's how things go sometimes. Pitched great. 100th career decision. So now he's technically on some of the leaderboards. I saw a note on Roto World. They were saying, he's now qualifies at Baseball Reference's, win-loss record. He's number 7 all time. That's 69-31. He's right behind Clayton Kershaw. And I just wanted to give him a quick little note, not because of that, which is cool, but because, he is somebody that doesn't usually get in the conversation of elite. And I get it. He's not a big strikeout guy. And most of the time we look at that as kind of the differentiator. But, he's made 18 starts. His ERA is 3.1. His whip is 1.16. He's almost got a strikeout an inning. His career numbers are a 3.04 ERA, a 1.16 whip. I think that, you take out a couple of wonky seasons here for him, and over his last 101 starts, he's 50-20 over 101 starts. He's got a 2.73 ERA and a whip of 1.08. Is that elite? Yeah, I think it is. Max Fried's a hell of a pitcher. Strong effort last night. The issue with him, as it has been for a while, last couple of years at least, is health. He's had it for the most part this year. He's at 108 innings, only threw 77 last year, but he did hit 185 back in 2022, so there should be no worry about workload with him here. He is just really, really good. Maybe he ain't sexy, but he's really good. All right, let's talk about some of these guys dealing with some physical situations. Zack Wheeler, and this is unfortunate because we talked about this earlier in the week. Zack Wheeler left his last start at 79 pitches. He had a back issue. They said it was no big deal. They said he's still going to make his start on the weekend. On this show, we talked about the fact that all sounds good, but I wouldn't be surprised. Let me back up. We wouldn't be surprised, right, if his start was skipped over the weekend against the Athletics. Lo and behold, guess what? They're skipping his start this weekend against the Athletics. It sucks because you lose a 2-start week, if those of you playing head-to-head. It sucks because it's a winnable matchup for him. But the good news that we're hearing, at least, is that they did test him out MRI-wise. And, I guess at your back, you run an MRI. Okay. Has anyone out there had an MRI or not had an MRI? I've had MRIs. Have you had MRIs? You have to sit there and the little thing goes boom, 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 because it spins around you as you sit still. I actually fell asleep in my MRI. So I guess some of us can do that. Some people can't. They get freaked out from the tightness and everything. But it's just they're shooting the images, right? So there's no pain or anything. But it takes like 45 minutes. They did brain scans on me, if you can believe that. Yeah, I know, right? Ray with brain scans. Back when I was younger, but he had the MRI done. There was nothing that they found. So the news is apparently that this is just precautionary. So he should be good to go coming out of the All-Star break. But it is rough on the fantasy squads out there that we're losing that ability for him to make a second start this week. Kyle Tucker played catch on Thursday. He was hurt on June 3rd when he hit that ball off his shin. Yesterday, July 11th, 5 weeks, was the first time he did anything baseball related on a field, and he played catch. He started jogging. Okay. He's playing catch. Given the fact that we're 5 weeks into this and his first thing on the field was playing catch, I got to think we're at least still, 2 weeks away? So this injury that is supposed to be a bruised shin is going to cost him 7 weeks of action. And I know a lot of people have hinted at, maybe there's something going on there. Well, is this really what's happening? Is there something? I don't know. Okay. I don't know. But what I do know is that we're looking at 7 weeks. That's a little, so hopefully that's 2 weeks and he's back in action and he's Kyle Tucker at that point. Yordan Alvarez, his teammate, was out of the lineup yesterday with the bumps and bruises. We talked about that here on the show. Unclear if he's going to play again today. He's not expected to miss the rest of the week or go on the injury list or anything like that. But he obviously would welcome back Kyle Tucker for that 1-2 punch in the middle of the lineup for the Astros. Cody Bellinger, who did the say with me, Ole! I don't think anyone broke their hand last night, so maybe we broke the curse here. But Cody Bellinger, with what has become an epidemic of players tilting out of the way of the pitch instead of turning their shoulder into the pitch, did indeed end up getting placed on the injured list with a fractured middle finger on his left hand. Probably, and again, we don't know this for sure, but probably 3 to 4 weeks, probably. That takes us to trade deadlines and all kinds of. What are the Cubs going to do? Are they going to trade him? Does this impact his trade market? Are they going to bring someone in to cover for him? Are they going to ride it out? All kinds of uncertainty there with him at the moment. The Cubs try to decide kind of what direction that they're going to go with all of this. Hopefully you have the ability to make a pivot. Obviously, Bellinger has been a very important player this season for everybody because he qualifies in the infield and outfield. It gives you that flexibility. The Cubs right now, I think, are 4 games under 500. So, I mean, are they going to be sellers? They probably would have been. Would Bellinger have been somebody they would have been interested in moving? Now, obviously, it's very difficult to move an injured player. Bellinger predictably has regressed from last season. Hasn't lived up to expectations there either. So, it's been and as we talked about at the start of the year with Cody Bellinger, he was one of the most difficult players to get a handle on from an analysis perspective because I think it's very easy to say, look, this guy's 28 years old, MVP level talent, superstar performances at times. Last year he went 20-20, hit 300. What are we going to do? And you look behind the curtain and you see all these numbers last year that are like, oh, they're not as good as we anticipated. Oh, they're a little bit down. Oh, this is kind of, is he going to hit 300 again? No. He's hit 269. So we got that right. Is the speed going to pull back? Probably. We got that right. 20 steals last year, 5 this year in 79 games. The home runs probably stay the same. Well, he's on pace for 18 in 180 games. That's way down. Remember, this guy had 47 home runs once, 39 home runs as a rookie, hit 26 last year, so the power's down a little bit. The strikeout rate, the walk rate have remained virtually unchanged. So there's been similarities and there's been some change. And both of those things I think were expected. A little bit unfortunate that the injury is now occurring and it's likely to cost him time. But remember as well, as crazy was last year, he played 130 games. So he missed a lot of time last season as well. The Cubs will try to make do with him or with his loss here in short term. As we wait for Russell Clay, let's just change things up a little bit here as we wait for Russell Clay to join us. We'll go to the chat room right now. What the hell? Let's get nuts. Chaka, that's like my yard in Pennsylvania, like a zoo. Oh, Chaka, I don't know what this was in reference to. You have to tell us again. I forget what I said at 14 minutes into the show. Sounds like a good one. Mark P., Raleigh Garver, 2004, us. I know you like one-catcher leagues, and they have them. They're both on your team, I believe, right? Not really sure what you're saying there, Mark. But hey, Kyle Raleigh's killing it. We talked about it. Chris D., good morning, Ray. I need to drop one of these pitchers to create an activation spot for Brian Woo in a head-to-head league. Baz, Gore, or Stroman. You know what I've been noticing a lot lately, and this has been, it's really interesting to me. And I say this a lot, and I'm just going to reiterate it here as we hit, basically the All-Star break almost. A lot of you are in leagues that I just don't understand. I get being in a shallow league because you only can have a handful of friends. I get being in shallow leagues because that's what the standard is when you click on ESPN or whatever. I get some of these things. I also get the idea that, I don't want to be picking guys from AA up and having to depend on them. So I want to be in a shallower league where I know the players. I get all of that. But what I've seen happen is I end up with questions like Chris has here that we're talking about dropping pitchers that, and I say this all the time, in every league I'm in would never be ever considered to drop. You would never consider dropping Woo or Baz or Gore or Stroman ever. And when you look around this landscape of this game, and I've talked to you all about this, I'm picking up Trevor Rogers. I'm rolling Bailey Falter. I'm hoping that Tyler Anderson can continue to confound history here because that's the nature of pitching. Guys get hurt every 5 minutes in pitching. And then some people are in leagues that are small leagues to begin with. Then the small leagues have small lineups, right? They're only starting 3 outfielders. You don't have a corner infielder, you don't have a middle infielder. You're only starting 5, 6, 7 pitchers. So you're in a small league with small starting lineups, and then you have a bench of like 3 players, which is even smaller. So you constricted all of this down so tightly that what you're doing is, you're hampering your ability to utilize a strong draft. You're hampering your ability to utilize your skills as a good waiver wire participant. You're hampering your ability to utilize your skills as a trade marketeer. You're making it more difficult on yourself. For a novice player or somebody that, has 15 minutes a week to do this, that's the kind of league they should be in. For someone who's subscribing to fantasyguru.com or watching this show, Fantasy Sports Daily, each week, Monday through Friday at 12 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock Pacific, for you want to be in deeper leagues because you're a serious person. And I even talk about this on the show. I never said this directly, but let's be honest about this too. You can read an article I wrote in 5 or 10 minutes. Watching this show, you're committing 45 minutes to an hour every day or once a week or 3 times a week, whatever it is. You're really in on this. And we appreciate you, by the way. You're really in on this. You want to be in a league that is deeper. Now, maybe in the case of Chris, maybe everything I just said, Chris, is totally not your scenario. Maybe you have put together a killer pitching staff. Maybe because there are teams, I see these, and it's like, whoa, you're in a 14-team league with that pitching staff. Wow. Happens, right? So maybe you've just done a bang-up job doing this. The problem I see is that Wu might be the drop. Ray, Wu can't stay healthy. And if we're in a league where we're dropping healthy pitchers for a guy that can't stay healthy, is that the right move? Now, we all know I'm a Brian Wu guy. We know that he was my breakout pitcher of the year. I'm not going to drop Brian Wu. Logically, it's probably the right guy to drop. Though, to be fair, his last injury was his hamstring and not his arm. Okay. Stroman has not been anything other than an innings eater. He's been mildly effective, and he doesn't have a lot of strikeouts. So I understand in a shallow league why we've been moving on for him. Mackenzie Gore I don't know if he's hit a rough patch, if he's hit a dead arm period, but he has not performed well the last month compared to the first couple of months. Totally fair there. Shane Baz just got back. Shane Baz, I don't think we should be dropping. I think Shane Baz, despite what wonky results last night, he was throwing 97 miles an hour and all this kind of stuff. So Baz, I don't want to drop either. So that leaves us with the following decision. Gore or Stroman. Stroman is more likely to make 30 starts. Gore is more likely to average a strikeout an inning. If I had to place one of the two, I'll take Gore and say Stroman's out, because Stroman to me is just, at least in the case of Gore, even if the ratios are similar to Stroman, we can get strikeouts with Gore. We're just not going to get them with Stroman. Again, I'm not dropping Stroman anywhere, but in this scenario, Chris, I think it might be the right decision. Chaka says, Wu is back this weekend, over under 5 innings. If I had to place a bet, I'd say under. I don't know where he's at physically. Even when he was pitching well early on, they were limited him a lot of times. Did he hit 80 pitches? Maybe once. I'd say under. It's a great matchup against the Angels. I wanted to put him in the cash game breakdown over at fantasyguru.com today. Wasn't able to do it because I just don't know how deep he's going to go into the game. Let's hope it's a good effort. That's step number 1. All right, let's talk to the aforementioned Russell Clay. Let's bring him in here. Let's see if I can figure out how the tech works. Bring Russell up a little bit. There's Russell Clay. How are you doing today, Russ?
What's going on, man?
Not much. We're talking some baseball here. Glad that it's a Wednesday that we can bring you in to talk some football. I know that you follow baseball as well, but your main ballywick, as they say, is the game of football. And
yeah, I'm a casual baseball fan, as they say.
Yeah, I see you sometimes in the Discord. You make a comment here and there, did you see that curveball, or stuff like that.
I can talk about Garrett Crochet for a minute and then get out of there. Yeah.
Do you want to talk about it for a minute, or you just want to? Oh,
well, he would be good on a lot of pitching staffs right now, right?
He would be. Yeah. The question is, are they going to trade him? I was talking to Phil Backett this morning, and it's like he's legitimately thrown this season as many innings as he's thrown the last 4 years. I don't know how long they're, so that what's the trade market for a guy that's already, his workload has been the same as 4 years? How long is this going to go? Even if he's pitching well, are you going to let this guy throw 170 innings after he threw 100 the last 4 years? So that's an interesting scenario. He will be in the cash game breakdown today.
I have seen in the last 2 weeks a bunch of names I've never seen before. And I'm like, is that the mid-season grind and people are getting grinded out right now?
Kind of. Yeah, I think it is. And I think it's going to get worse. And that's something we've been talking about all year, the way that pitching is. So, yeah, it's a game where you got to be all in. It's very difficult to win in fantasy baseball anymore. You can't just draft and forget about it like you could 20 years ago. So
no,
it's not the same game. Fantasy football is a different game too, because obviously the league itself is changing, styles are changing, coaching changes, all that kind of stuff. And let's talk a little bit about the quarterback position. Daniel Jones, selfishly, is on my fantasy team in my dynasty setup. My other quarterback was Justin Fields, which I felt great about last year, and now right. I drafted Drake May, and we'll see. I'm hoping that Daniel Jones is ready for week 1. Let's hope he's ready for week 1. Who is Daniel Jones this season? Is he just a guy, quarterback 2? Have enough changes been made with the Giants that maybe he can recapture some of the glory from a couple years ago where he was trending to be a quarterback 1? Where are we at with Daniel Jones?
I started out the offseason throwing Daniel Jones out the dynasty window and saying this is toast. He's coming off a major injury. There's not going to be much upside this year, and long-term, whatever. However, he was pretty good 2 years ago, and I can't really deny that. And he has much better weapons this year. He's got Malik Neighbors. He's got Jalen Hyatt going into year 2. He's got Darius Slayton, who's kind of had a career turnaround in some ways. Mm-hmm. So this is actually a pretty good setup here. And I think he's going to be all right. The only problem is coming off that major injury, he's probably not going to run much. And without that rushing upside, that was what really boosted him in 2022. So, he is what he is.
I have Darius Slayton. I've got that killer combo in my dynasty league of Jones and Slayton. Let's go.
There you go.
That's not who I'm depending on. Russell Wilson's another quarterback. Looks like he's going to be under center in week 1. Obviously, Fields is there, and but most people are anticipating Wilson kind of being the guy maybe all year long. If I said to you Russell Wilson and Daniel Jones for 2024, who are you taking?
I think Russell Wilson plays more games, but once Justin Fields gets in there again, we hate on Arthur Smith all the time, or I do. I hate on Arthur Smith enough for everybody. But in terms of his actual coaching ability, he's great. And I feel like the sky's the limit with a guy like Justin Fields with Arthur Smith. So the funny thing is he's probably going to be the Taysom Hill of that offense, which isn't great. But I do think we're going to see some weirdness in a good way from Fields this year. But yeah, I do think he gets on the field as a starter at some point this year.
Talking with Russell Clay here on Fantasy Sports Daily. I saw you answering a question. I think it was this morning. It might have been last night, very recently in the Discord. You have Justin Herbert ranked where in the dynasty? Yeah. People have, I think, taken the Harbaugh Roman thing really far. And some people seem to think that Justin Herbert's going to throw the ball 19 times a week. Like, they've really taken this far. Jeff Manns earlier this week on his show, the Elite Sports Show, Monday through Friday, 3 to 6 Eastern on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. There's a soundbite audiogram that's out on Twitter or X, all that as well. Said that Justin Herbert for him this year is the perfect quarterback too. He's coming off the board. He's quarterback 18, 19. There's not excitement. If you're taking 2 quarterbacks, he's the perfect quarterback. Talk to us about Justin Herbert, dynasty-wise, because again, you always seem to have to defend that. Dynasty-wise with your rankings, and also in 2024, have we taken it too far? Is this still a guy that could throw for 4,100 yards and 28 touchdowns this year, and no one's really thinking that's going to happen?
So that has been a consistent drumbeat all offseason, the Justin Herbert thing. I do have him ranked very high and much higher than consensus at this point. Herbert's going really low in season long and dynasty for me at this point. I get it. Again, he's more of a pocket-based quarterback, and he has not produced elite results the last couple years. However, maybe he ends up with the Phil Rivers type career. It's matched it pretty well so far, but week to week, year to year, I feel like this guy is a super high floor. He's going to get you 4,000 plus passing yards. I know the Harbaugh thing's there, and I actually agree for this year, the upside may be capped slightly compared to previous years, and they're not going to have the same, run and shoot, almost bad system they had the last couple years. But he's still very, very good, and he's a proven talent. So if he ends up with the Matt Ryan, Phil Rivers dynasty career, okay. But you have a quarterback that we know is going to be starting for a very long time. I view Jared Goff kind of similarly at this point. I don't think there's the same upside, and he's going to have, but even while he's having those bad years in Los Angeles and that bad first year in Detroit, it's like, all right, but he's going to be around forever. And thankfully he's turned it around. But these guys that they're proven starters, that's so valuable.
Justin Herbert, I watched him a lot, as I think we all have. I mean, he throws the ball about 127 miles an hour, and he's pretty damn athletic. He's not, Anthony Richardson, or he's not Justin Fields. And I think that sometimes we lose those guys that he's also not Matt Stafford. Like, he's an athletic guy. He can run a little bit. He can move the pocket and everything. And if he was a quarterback, I mean, he would be a unicorn if he was a quarterback in 1985. Yep. Like, it's just we've almost become blind because we have so many physically gifted quarterbacks that Justin Herbert can sling it. I would love to have him on my Dynasty League team. So I agree with you there, Russell. Russell Clay at fantasyguru.com joining us here. As you can see there on the screen, there's his name. As you can see, you can also follow him on Twitter at Russell J. Clay. You can find his work in that draft guide that you now see on the screen. Click the subscribe tab in the top right corner at fantasyguru.com. Ooh. I saw a picture of Zamir White and he looked like the Incredible Hulk. He took a selfie and he's like, "Roar." And okay, running backs, they're big fellas, right? But it kind of brought to my mind, the idea of best shape of his life, because we're going to start hearing a lot more of that as teams start, reporting and all this kind of stuff. And he trained with so-and-so in the off season. He can do 7,000 squats and all this kind of stuff. How do you handle the best shape of your life talk? Is it just, haha, cool? Do you take anything away from it? Is it just beat writers reporting things that because they have nothing else to say? What are your thoughts on he's in the best shape of his life?
I don't care. I don't care. They're all in incredible shape all the time. Well, that's not true. Not all the time. Some of these guys are eating fast food and McDonald's and all that. But in terms of Zamir White, I've never, ever questioned his ability or physique or anything of that nature. He's sort of been undeniable despite being a later round pick. He actually is a high pedigree guy. So going back to high school, he was a freak. He was a freak going to Georgia, and he will continue to be a freak. So yeah, I'm in. Those pictures, it's like this guy is a mythical legend from high school and college days. The only problem was him staying healthy. So do they give him that featured workload? That's what I'm curious about. But it does seem that way right now.
It does. I mean, are the Raiders another team like the Chargers where it's like no one's really excited? Like even Devontae Adams, it's like some people are in on him. Other people are like, all right, I'll take Devontae out. We got the report the other day that, Connell and Minshew are sharing. Like, we don't know who the quarterback is going to be. Ugh. Are the Raiders kind of in that Charger, interesting in the same division, in that Charger zone of, people aren't really paying attention, but there's a chance that, again, Zamir White could be a top 15 running back this year. And I don't think he could be a running back 1 this year if they give him the ball 20 times a week.
And I don't think it's that hard for him to get there with this setup. And again, there's going to be a lot of 2 tight end sets in Las Vegas this year, or I hope so. If there isn't, then I don't know what the hell they're doing. But when you look at the Bowers-Mayer thing, and then you look at Adams and you look at Zamir White with Josh Jacobs leaving, it's a pretty clear setup for him to survive and succeed this year. So I'm pretty excited about it.
On the Titans roster, we've seen a real increase in influx of offensive talent. They've really surrounded Will Levis, given him an opportunity this year to have more success. If you look at the backfield, they've got Tony Pollard and Tajae Spears. Spears looked great last year in a support role for Derrick Henry. Let's get excited about Tajae Spears. Here comes Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard did not look great last year. I think a lot of people for years have been clamoring for him to take over the backfield. He got the opportunity and everything went in the toilet. He just wasn't the same guy. Now we have a scenario where both guys are going to be used. We're not really sure if one guy's going to emerge or not. Their ADP is like a round apart in seasonal. They're drafted very similarly. How are you handling the backfield with the Titans? And are you interested in this backfield, or is it just a messy one that you're not interested in, Russell?
Have not been interested all offseason. However, I did come into the Titans offseason as a hater, and Tyler Baker has shifted me more towards a middling. I see the vision a bit.
Not a lover, but middling. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm pretty middling on all this. There's a lot of mouths to feed all of a sudden in Tennessee with Hopkins, Ridley, even a Tyler Boyd, and the 2 running backs. So Will Levis, he was this way in college, and he is going to be this way in the NFL. Some weeks you can tell by the second snap, oh, he's got it today. This is going to be lights out. He's going to throw a 50-yard touchdown to Calvin Ridley. And then other weeks, it's going to be like, okay, there's 150 yards to go around this week. We're in trouble. So there's going to be some frustration here and there. But the Pollard situation, he was probably rolled in Dallas in his final season. But if he can get back to that 10 to 15 touch per week role, I think he's going to be a lot more explosive, and on the field, he's going to be much better. So middling fantasy wise, but I do like his upside in a smaller role.
We got a couple of questions here in the chat, so let's just toss that real quick, Russ. Here's the first one from Chaka. Speaking of Zamir White, do you like him better than Mr. Moss in a dynasty PPR setup? So Moss or White if we're talking a dynasty league, Russell?
I do like Zamir White better in dynasty, but both of their values are tied pretty strongly to this upcoming season. So if you like Moss more in redraft, I wouldn't bat an eye at taking him over him in dynasty, but Zamir, I feel like Zamir could get a couple more years as a featured guy. Ultimately, neither are long-term. I would look at Zamir more as a redraft guy than a multiple season guy.
If I ask you a more general question, Russell, and I say, hey man, I know you are in handcuffing a little bit. I know it's not your number one goal when you're drafting and everything like that. But if I was going to say to you, who is your current favorite handcuff? Do you have a name? Do you look at some starter out there and say, oh, I'm sure he's going to get hurt, or some starter out there and you say, I just don't think he's going to do it, or some backup running back is really popping to you from the metric side of things or the tape side of things? Do you have a favorite handcuff right now?
I still love Kendre Miller. I don't know if that's rational or not right now, though. I feel like that might be, a last year take that I'm holding on to this year. However, it was a good take last year, so we're going to hold on to it for this year. I also, Bucky, Irving, and Braelon Allen of the rookies are 2 guys that have depth charts, but aren't really in competitive depth charts beyond the starter.
Okay.
So when I look at Rachaad White, we didn't go into last year thinking Rachaad White was this established superstar. Right. So if Bucky Irving can get a backup role and maybe get some snaps on the field, any type of injury to White, I could see a big role.
All right. Let's go back to the chat room. We got another question here from David P. Morning, guys. 10-team PPR Superflex. We can only draft 2 quarterbacks. Interesting.
Ooh.
If I take Mahomes or Hurts in round 1, would you look for your second? When would you look for your second quarterback? And would you take Mahomes or Hurts? So in a Superflex, let's start with that. Superflex League redraft, 10-team, Mahomes or Hurts for QB1.
I would say the most important factor right there is you can only have 2.
Okay.
So 10 teams. I didn't do very well in math in high school, but 10 times 2 is 20. That means there's going to be 12 extra starting quarterbacks on the waiver wire every week. So with that type of advantage, you could completely fade quarterback if you want to get the Jamar Chase, Justin Jeffersons, John Taylors. I'm not saying you should do that, but there's a lot of ways you can jimmy that system to work in your favor. Even if you take one quarterback and fire away with burn and churn on the waiver wire, I would say you want 3 quarterbacks rostered, man, just so people can't do that. But since that is there, I would just use the waiver wire.
Yeah, it's a good question, David, because Russ is totally right that I would probably play it this way. And again, I wouldn't do a 10-team league with these restrictions, but okay. I don't have a problem taking that elite quarterback, but if I take the elite quarterback, I'm then going to take quarterback 18 in my draft, right? Like I'm not. If I take Hurts or Mahomes, I'm then going to take Matthew Stafford. Like I'm not gonna go then grab Joe Burrow. He's still sitting there. I'm not doing that. Not that he would be. I'm not doing that. So if you go early with that quarterback, just commit to like literally taking quarterback in your last round, because as Russell said, you can't. If you're okay with Rodgers or Stafford or any of these, Deshaun Watson, they're going to be there. So, boy, I'd probably go Hurts since we have a limitation here over Mahomes. I think Mahomes is the safest guy, but I would probably play it Hurts with the pick, thinking that if I get a Stafford type of quarterback, Rodgers type of quarterback, they're more of a pocket passer that's not going to run it all. So I think it's a nice combination with Hurts with them, because if Mahomes throws 48 touchdowns, what if he throws 28 touchdowns, right? Yeah. At least with Hurts, he's going to run a little bit. I don't think that either way of playing this is wrong. If you wanted to wait and make your first quarterback, you want to take Jared Goff and then, go with, Brock Purdy and, you can play it any way you want, but I agree with Russell. You don't have to take a quarterback. A lot of times in Superflex leagues, we tell people you got to take a quarterback early because of the way the draft is going to go. You're safer here with this scenario with the two quarterbacks. He also had one other follow-up question, Russell. Do you think the Chargers backfield will be a full-blown committee? We've been going back and forth with one of our users over at fantasygear.com about the backfield, because in a dynasty league, he's putting his team together. But what are your thoughts? We're all excited about the backfield, but there's three names that are kind of in the hopper at the moment.
I am excited. Whoever is getting those touches, I'm in. And I've heard that stance a few times this offseason, and that's where I've landed. I still have hope. Let me clear this up. I like J.K. Dobbins out of Ohio State, and it would be fun for me if he got even a half season of healthy play. He's very likely not the same anymore and will probably either be a cut or something not what J.K. Dobbins was earlier in his career. Gus Edwards is what he is. We know what that is. Everyone's here for the Kamani Vidal upside play. I'm in, guys. He needs Dobbins to be a cut quality running back at this point in his career. So that is your number one storyline right now. You're watching for that. But Harbaugh is Harbaugh. He doesn't care about your fantasy team to an extreme degree. He actually may hate your fantasy team, if anything. So he's going to do what he needs to do to win and grind these games out. Gus Edwards actually hasn't been a perfect model of health either.
Right.
So, yeah. And they still have Isaiah Spiller there, but do feel like he's going to be a cut. So it is Vidal. So there you go.
Russell Clay, Ray Flowers here on Fantasy Sports Daily. Russell's with us every Friday, about halfway through the show. We talk to Tyler Beaker on Thursdays and Armando Marcel on Wednesdays. Before we wrap things up here on the show, Russell, what are you working on that's going to be released soon over at fantasyguru.com?
Yeah, we got Clay's Corner coming out today. Check that out. I'm doing some research on – so I have this long-standing research on draft position, but I do feel as though – some of that is becoming a little outdated. So I'm doing a lot of research on draft classes today, and I'm going to be putting that out there. So definitely check that out. I'm on YouTube. So definitely check that out as well. Russell Clay. And yeah, we got our betting guide that's going to be coming out. I saw a lot of emails for that over this last week. Really excited to see what Tyler Beaker, Rob, and the crew put out there for content. And an MMA card this weekend. So check out T-Rod and Serge's MMA picks.
Look at that. Company man, Russell Clay. By the way, the way we talk about this all the time too, the rankings for Dynasty are yours over at fantasyguru.com.
Yes.
You do update those weekly, correct?
Yes. Every Wednesday, update those. And every Tuesday, we have a live stream, 7 p.m. Eastern. Me, Tyler Beaker, and Rich Mileto sometimes, Armando Marcel sometimes, doing it.
Keeping it real. Russell Clay, Ray Flowers here. You know what, Russell, you came in a couple minutes later than normal today, and we took the question, so we're just going to wrap it up with you on the screen. Is that okay if we close down with you actually, instead of disappearing, being there at the end?
Lock it in. Let's do it.
All right, that's Russell Clay. I'm Ray Flowers. Don't forget to go to fantasyguru.com. Get that draft guide. You can see it there on the screen. Everything you need, including Russell's work on the Dynasty League. You get access to all the rankings, all of his work profiling the players, rookie rankings, Dynasty rankings, PPR rankings, non-PPR rankings, IDP rankings, best ball rankings, all of that. fantasyguru.com. Subscribe in the top right corner. Click on it. Get the seasonal package, the DFS package, the wagering package, or all three. Just go nuts. Thanks for joining us today, Russell. Really appreciate it. We'll talk to you again next Friday. You can say something, Russell. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
That was your opportunity to close with your little thanks, Ray. I really appreciate it. Russell Clay, bringing a levity to the show. Hey, Russell, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thanks, Ray. I'll see you next week.
We'll see you next Friday, and you'll see him over the weekend and the rest of the day and all that. His work over at fantasyguru.com, and he's always in the Discord answering those questions. So check it out. For Russell Clay, I'm Ray Flowers. This has been Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by fantasyguru.com.